quickly introduce himself.
I'm Curtis Forney, audit associate, been with BCM for about 9 months. So I was actually in you guys' shoes here last year getting ready to meet the firms. So if you guys have any questions about anything, I'll be around afterwards. With that,
He remembers what it was like more than I do.
I do. It's a little nerve-wracking. I remember that.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I'm Greg Anton. It's a pleasure to meet most of you. There's a whole bunch that I've met and seen before. So some of what I present you've probably seen, but you probably forgot, so that's all right. And let me share with you briefly a little bit about our firm, and then I'm going to get into kind of the slide deck. But I was in your shoes, and you're going to hear a little bit about how I ended up in Greeley. But I went to school here and graduated, went to work for a large international accounting firm, and in July of 2002 left with 2 others, and we started a firm because we didn't have anything better to do, and we decided, maybe it'd be good to go without a paycheck for a year and see how we can make this work. And we did it, and we've had a little bit of success along the way, so we now have 3 offices in Denver, Boulder, and Greeley. And we have just over 110 people in the CPA firm, and we also own an investment advisory services company with about $200 million of assets under management, where we manage investments for clients and non-clients. We have the core traditional services that you'll see really in any of the CPA firms. But I think as I go through this presentation, you'll get a little bit of a flavor of my culture and the culture of the firm. We really do kind of work hard and play hard. And at the end, I'll talk a little bit about work-life integration, not just work-life balance, but integrating your work and life and having both of them be more successful. Most of the people that are in public accounting love what they do, but not all of them. And I think this is a great time to explore what that's all about. And when I get done, I'm going to try to save as much time as I possibly can so I can answer any and all questions that you might have about anything. And ultimately, I want to try to fly through the material so that we can have an exchange. And I'm here really for you, and use me as an information piece if possible. Professionally, I've been really active and involved, and it started with involvement at UNC, really, after I graduated. And was active here and was on 2 presidents. I was on the search committee when they hired Hank Brown. I was on the search committee when they hired Kay Norton. On the foundation board, president of the Alumni Association, got really active and involved here. And then I got active and involved at the Colorado Society of CPAs and became chairman of the Colorado Society of CPAs Board of Directors, which is our association of the 10,000 CPAs in the state. And then I went on and got active and became very involved in the profession at a national level, and rolling off a 7-year term on the AICPA board, where I just served as chairman of the AICPA. 3rd person from the state of Colorado that served as chairman, and the AICPA represents the 400,000 CPA members across the country as the professional organization. So for the last 2 years, I had an apartment in New York and spent most of my time in New York dealing with a lot of professional issues that the accounting profession deals with, not just here, but globally. And last calendar year, I was on 161 United flights and about 40 other flights on other airlines, and probably gave 200 and something speeches. And I didn't always get to talk about pictures, and I didn't get to talk about myself as a kid. And I'm going to. Which one do you push to get it to go?
The left one.
Left. Left is forward, because I pushed right, so it probably screwed it up already. So how do you make it go?
Oh, man.
You need the AV dude. There's always an AV dude. And we got the AV dude, what's your name?
Jake.
Jake?
Yeah.
Thanks, Jake. It doesn't look like left is right. Maybe we should do it.
That's the left one.
You're not supposed to make fun of it.
Yeah.
So press it hard. You know how do you make it go backwards? Maybe you should do this.
You want me to do it?
You might, you went
flag me
down, you went down, Jake, you'll become Vanna White.
All right.
All right, back, Vanna, here we go. So, like everybody that goes to UNC, how many people here are from Massachusetts? It's kind of funny because that was exactly the way it was when I was in school here too. So I grew up in the Boston area, just south of Boston, in a town called Sharon. And I'm happy to say 2 weeks ago, Sharon was recognized as the #1 small community to live in by CNN Money Magazine, my little hometown. I grew up on that little lake where that sailboat is called Lake Massapog. It's where Paul Revere mined his bog iron when he made Revere stuff, silverware and all that. So that's where I grew up. And I share that with you because, like everybody that grows up just outside of Boston, they go to school in Greeley, right? You saw that. So there was this dude named Horace Greeley, right? And that's what the town of Greeley was named after, Horace Greeley. And he said, go west, young man, go west. So I thought to myself, I'm going west like Horace Greeley, and I did. I wanted to go to school in Colorado. I wanted to ski. And when I was in high school, I went to the guidance counselor's office and looked at the brochure, Vanna. And if you could see without this light in the back, you can see the mountains coming right out of campus. And I said to myself, I'm going to Greeley, Colorado. It's in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. Forget about this Harvard MIT stuff. Harvard and thank you. Those professors are good for everything. Harvard and MIT, they do not equate to UNC. And of course, everybody in Massachusetts, when I said I'm going to UNC, they thought I was going to Northern Carolina, right? University of North Carolina. And I always tell them I'm going to the real UNC. So I picked the school because it was in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. Little did I know that the brochure was really lying to me, because they also said there's a ski area in Greeley, Colorado. And there was. It was there from 1971 to 1986. So I got here in 1982 and I got out in 1986. So for my 4 years, I was in the heart of the Rockies, down the street. This is actually a picture of a track now. I don't know how many skiers have tractors in the front yard, but this one did. 150 vertical feet, the lift tickets were $5. And we used to go out there and ski all the time because we weren't in the heart of the Rockies. We were in Greeley. But I can tell you I had an incredible experience here. I learned as much in Alan's classroom, the Professor McConnell's classroom, as I did outside of the classroom. From great people in a great community. Met my wife at Harrison Hall our freshman year. Never left Colorado. Stayed here and would never leave. So a little bit of my story. So let's talk more about you and some of the information. I just put pictures together and talk about pictures. It makes it easier than I don't have to remember things. But developing CPAs in the future of the accounting profession. Developing CPAs, one thing you need to know is based on the statistics, half of you are going to go to work in a public accounting firm. So if we go to the next. Last year, we had a record number of accounting graduates. There were 82,000 accounting graduates in 2012. The AICPA does a study on the supply and demand of accounting students. And if you want to see what the demand is for your services, take a look at this survey. And here's just a couple of tidbits from that survey. It talks about compensation, what compensation will look like, what the demand is for you, what the demand is for an undergraduate degree, what the demand is for a 150-hour degree, all of the different scenarios that can exist from a graduating accounting student and where you might end up employed based on the study. So there's 40,350 accounting graduates that were hired by CPA firms. That's not into business and industry or corporations. 40,000 students were hired into CPA firms across the country last year. And of those firms that did that hiring, 89% of those firms forecasted that they'll hire the same or increase numbers from 2012. So in 2013, the demand for those that will be graduating is higher in 2013 than it was in 2012. That demand is going to continue for the next 10 years at a minimum. There's 45,000 CPA firms in the United States. The 500th largest firm has 21 CPAs in it. You have the Big Four and a lot of other firms. The average age of the partners in those firms is 62. So we're going to have huge retirements of the baby boomers coming through, and there's massive demand in public accounting and in business and industry for the analytical skills that you learn in accounting. So over the next 10 years, there's a projection that the demand for accounting graduates is going to increase 20%. And we have massive amounts of retirements. So there's pretty good job security for what you are studying to do. You can see there's 240,380 enrolled accounting majors. That's a record high. We've never had more individuals as declared accounting majors ever in the history of business schools, colleges, and universities, 2011, 2012. So there's a lot of you out there, but there's a lot of demand for what you do. Next one, please. I heard about this Deloitte resume review, and I would take advantage of anything you can around resume reviews, interviewing skills, all those things. And here's one that you should really take advantage of. It's a website that was designed and created by the AICPA. It's called thiswaytocpa.com. When you log on here, you can log on and receive a free student membership to the AICPA, so you can get involved and you can put on your resume that you're a student member of the AICPA, which is kind of a cool thing, and you get cool information. There's also on this website thousands of scholarship opportunities, thousands of them. And most individuals have no idea that this exists. So if you want to see the most robust aggregation of accounting scholarships anywhere, take a look at this website. There's career tools. So there's resume writing tutorials where all of the firms have come together and critiqued resumes, and they identify what the best models are for resumes, what should be included, what shouldn't, how to do it. So there's resume writing tutorials. One of the coolest things that's in here is there's podcasts, there's video podcasts of interviews. They'll show you the do's and don'ts of interviewing, where they ask a question and they'll show how not to respond, and sometimes they're a little humorous. And they'll ask questions and show you how to respond to the questions. So it gives you a really good perspective on the types of questions you're going to receive in an interview process. And more importantly, it shows you and demonstrates how you should respond to those types of questions. It's a really, really great tool to utilize. Thiswaytocpa.com. Thiswaytocpa.com is also who published this book, The Future CPA's Guide to Life and Awesomeness. And if you sat in the front row, you got a book. And if you walked by the front, there was a handful of other books. The handful that are there, I'll hand out for good questions. Not just any question, but good questions at the end. And if anybody else really has a deep desire for the book, I show up on campus periodically, and I'll bring more books at some future event. Show up and you'll get a book. How's that? So thiswaytocpa.com. Next one, please. CPA Horizons 2025. One of the things we did while I served on the AICPA board is we did a vision project where we looked out to what the accounting profession would look like in the year 2025. The AICPA did this 15 years ago and did it again, looking out to 2025. This is a really cool thing to look at if you want to have an understanding of what your world may look like during your professional career. This is a great tool. This is something that you can make reference to in the interviewing process. You're always going to be given the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. If you want to stump the interviewer, you can say, What do you think about whatever it might be that I just talked about in the CPA Horizons 2025 study that was done? And they'll say, what are you talking about? And you'll be able to educate the interviewer. How's that? And the interviewers love being stumped. It's kind of like stumping the professor. Right? Don't you love being stumped?
Well, it's okay once in a while.
So, please, 10 key insights. There was 75,000 inputs into this study that was done, with around 5,000, not just CPAs, but non-CPAs, investment bankers, bankers, folks from academia, regulators, everybody that works within the profession of accounting provided insights. And it's kind of cool that the 75,000 insights boiled down into these buckets, these 10 really key themes. I'll talk about two of them, and this is available if you just Google AICPA, CPA Horizons 2025, you can download the report and take a look at it. I would recommend that you consider doing that. I'll talk about two, technology. Technology during your first 5 years in public accounting is going to replace virtually everything that a staff tax person would do, as an example. I'll give you an example. When I started in public accounting, we prepared tax returns manually, where we wrote in the information on a piece of paper, and then we had to check it mechanically and all that, because laptop computers and desktop computers and that software didn't exist when I started in public accounting. And that was only 25 years ago. Look, I'm chronologically catching up to my hairline. I'm not as old as I look. But, so today, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, preparing tax returns, all the information would come in to the citizen, to the individual. You know, you receive a 1099s or the W-2 or K-1 if you invest in partnerships. But who's received a W-2 here? So almost everybody's worked. That's a good sign. It's a good step in the right direction. So a W-2 today comes to you in the mail, right? And then you have to do something with it to prepare the return. How many people prepared their own return? How many people use their iPhone to prepare their return? So right now, today, the technology exists with the W-2 that you receive to take your iPhone out and get TurboTax SnapTax. You take a picture of your W-2, and it electronically files your tax return in 10 seconds. That's it. When we prepare tax returns in our office, that W-2 that you receive, nobody takes that and inputs that information into a computer. It goes onto a scanner. The scanner takes the information and it puts it on the taxpayer's tax return in the right place for the right amount with all the information necessary. Same thing with all of the other, you can get a stack of information from the wealthiest people this high. All that information goes across a scanner and right into the software. It's replaced most of the human capital of preparing tax returns. Within 5 years, all that information that comes to a CPA firm for preparing a tax return is going to go directly to the IRS. The IRS will prepare a tax return on behalf of the taxpayer, and the taxpayer will acknowledge the accuracy of the information there or make modifications to it. That's what's going to happen during the first 5 years if you get out of school in the next year. So technology is replacing a lot of the doing of what we do, but it's never going to replace the planning around, yeah, the IRS might prepare my return for me, or some scanner might take the information and stick it on a return, but how do I know the best tax structure to be in? How do I tax plan to be as tax efficient as possible? So what you're going to be doing when you get out of school is a much more complex and a higher level, and as a result, you're going to have to learn more. You're going to have a master's in taxation to work in the tax area, because you're not going to learn really on the job doing preparation. The same thing's happening within the audit world, where a lot of the things that we do from an audit perspective are done utilizing technology. Analysis. There's something called Binford's Law, where you evaluate data streams of checks that are cut, as an example. And it will tell you whether or not there's indications of fraud just by downloading all of the disbursements of the company without ever having to look at any of them. It's pretty amazing what the technology does to replace human capital. So we're going to operate at a much higher level. Worldwide profession, the world is flat, the world is blurring, the borders of our country are blurring, and ultimately there will be global tax policy, global audit standards, global financial reporting standards that we're all going to be operating on wherever you are in this world. So we're becoming much more of a global profession from that perspective. So that just shares with you a couple of insights into the 10, and there's a lot more behind those. The core purpose is standing the test of time, which is CPAs making sense of a changing and complex world. That's what we came up with 20 years ago, and we decided, you know what, that's what we still do, and we're not changing that. Core values substantially unchanged. The core values of the profession being a CPA: integrity, competence, lifelong learning. When you become a CPA, you're required to go back to school basically 40 hours a year, every year for the rest of your career, staying on the top of your game from a learning perspective, at a minimum 40 hours a year. So that's lifelong learning. Objectivity, commitment to excellence, and this relevance in the global marketplace was actually a new concept that was added to core values, because the world is becoming flat, and it is something that we need to maintain our relevance every place in the world, not just in our local communities or our country. The core competencies, this one's really, if whoever downloads this and looks at it, some professor's going to give you extra credit if you do it, I bet. But this one's really important to look at, because what you need to know when you get out into the workplace is really the core competencies, and accounting curriculums in the business schools design their curriculum around creating these core competencies. But if you really want to know what you need to know so that you can be successful, communication skills, leadership skills, critical thinking, anticipating and serving evolving needs, synthesizing intelligence to insight, integration and collaboration. Synthesizing intelligence to insight is the concept of big data. There's so much data that comes out of computer systems and information systems today. Taking that information and analytically using our mind as accountants and saying, this is what it means, this is what we need to do with it, this is how we should operate the business as a result of this information. It talks about all these skills and how you get these skills and why they're necessary for you to be successful. And what happens if one person understands these skills better than the other person? Who played kickball as a kid, ever? Or a game like kickball? Who gets picked first?
The captain.
After the captains self-anoint themselves, right? It's like, I'm gonna be a captain, and nobody complains, because the captain's usually driving leader, kicks the ball really far and hard, right? But who gets picked first after the captain's self-anoint?
The best person.
The best players. If you want to be the best player, it's no different in getting a job. Kickball, and what you learn in kickball, and the life lesson of kickball, is life. And you, in this life, can one-up the person sitting next to you by gaining knowledge and information. That's the key to success. And if you use that knowledge and information to better yourself, then you will one-up, and you will put yourself in a position to get picked playing kickball. Because being a CPA is just like kickball, from a getting picked standpoint. Next one, please. What's at stake? One of the things, how many people have seen, I know a handful of you have seen me do the what's at stake presentation before, so I'm going to do it really quickly, and then we'll see how much you remember, because I'm going to quiz. So while I was involved in the AICPA, we put together a program to educate members of Congress, and I met with members of Congress, and met actually at the White House with members from the Obama administration to help educate them about the US government's financial statements, what's in them. How many people are aware that the US government produces a financial statement? Good showing of hands. How many people have read them? A couple that, would you have you not sat through one of my presentations?
Probably not.
Probably not. So all of you should read the financial statements. Here's what's in them. Assets of 2.7 trillion, liabilities of 18.8 trillion, accumulated deficit of 16.1 trillion. Flip forward. A trillion. Does anybody remember what a trillion is that sat through this? I heard 32 something.
Is it 32,000 years, is it?
In
In
seconds.
seconds, yeah.
So 1,000,000 seconds is 11 and a half days in time. 1,000,000,000 seconds is 32 years in time. 1,000,000,000,000 seconds is 32,000 years in time. To give you the magnitude of difference between billions and trillions. That's a lot. That's a lot. You can flash forward through those pretty quick to the next one. So the financial statements are completely different. You've heard about the FASB because you learned about it in school. Right now you're learning about the FASB, and you learn a little bit about the GASB, which produces the financial accounting standards for government entities, state, local governments. The FASAB, the Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board, produces the standards that the federal government follows. Social Security and Medicare, the obligations are not reflected on the US government's financial statements under the FASAB principles, they're footnote disclosures. So that $16 trillion deficit doesn't include these amounts. You can see this big, almost $9 trillion decline. Go to the next. In your auditing class, you're going to learn about audit opinions. How many people have taken an auditing class? And you learn about qualified and unqualified opinions, right? An unqualified opinion is a clean opinion. We audited it, everything's okay. That's unqualified. A qualified opinion is we audited it and we don't agree, it's not okay. So the Statement of Social Insurance, the US GAO does an audit of Treasury's numbers, and those financial results of the obligations that you just saw for social insurance, 52 trillion, those numbers are understated by about $10 trillion based on the GAO's audit of Treasury's numbers. So for the first time, beginning in 2010, 11 and 12, the audit opinion on the US government's Statement of Social Insurance is a qualified opinion, which means we don't agree, we can't audit the results that you produced. So at a minimum, the numbers I just showed you are about 10 trillion short. Next slide. So from a balance sheet perspective, if we just assume the numbers in the financial statements are accurate of the US government, you've got $16 trillion in this gray. This is the US deficit that's reflected in the balance sheet. You have 51.6 trillion, we know is a little short, but that's the number that's reflected in the footnotes that has a qualified opinion on it. The total is 67.7 trillion. And now you take everything that you own. Everything your parents own, everything Bill Gates owns, everything Mark Zuckerberg owns, everything every citizen of this country owns, net of the student loans, car loans, mortgages, any debt on what we own. The net assets of all the citizens, $64.8 trillion. So the obligations of our country are greater than the assets of the citizens of our country, which means as a country we're insolvent. That's what that means. We gotta fix it. We need you in the future to help fix it, because it is going to be a problem for decades. We're gonna have to increase revenue, reduce costs. I do a whole hours and hours of presentations on this where I go through solutions on how to fix it. I'm not gonna bore you with how to fix it, but I will bore you with, next one, a video. If you haven't seen enough of me live and in person today, there's a video that goes through what's at stake, this initiative that we put together. These two videos, this video is a bunch of CPAs talking about the problem. This video is last year's video that we delivered to members of Congress. A CPA from every state in this country flew to Washington, D.C. and hand-delivered this video to every member of Congress so they could be educated about one of the tidbits that I just showed you on how we're insolvent from a balance sheet perspective. This video was produced this May, and we hand-delivered, a CPA hand-delivered to every member in Congress. And I interview other members of Congress and talk about the value and benefit of using accounting information in managing our country's fiscal situation, problems, concerns. So my ask of you is to get the word out. Take a look at the video at aicpa.org/what's at stake. Post it if you do Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Make people aware of it, educate others, spread the word. Help allow others to be as knowledgeable as you are on this topic and concept. Next one. Yep, this is the last slide. But the one that's most important. The enrichment cycle. I don't know if you Google it, if it'll give credit to Greg Anton for coming up with this, but I'm taking credit. The more you give, the more you receive in return. I call it the enrichment cycle. And it's worked for me in my life. So let's just talk about what the enrichment cycle is and put it in the context of school as an example. If you don't go to class and you don't study, how well are you going to do on a principles of accounting test? Not very well. Really poorly. If you go to class and you study, what are your chances of improving from that? Not very well. Greatly. So the more you give, the more you receive in return. If we look at it from a physical activity standpoint, if you eat $402 worth of Jimmy John's sandwiches, I didn't realize you could spend $402 at Jimmy John's. But I guess you can. And you don't work out at all, and you just eat Jimmy John's sandwiches all the time. You're not going to be that healthy. If you exercise, work out, have physical activity, you're going to benefit from that. So there's a really great book called Outliers. Has anybody read the book Outliers? A person? Anybody else? It's written by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell. And the book Outliers talks about, there's a lot of different themes in the book, but ultimately what it leaves you with is, in order to be an expert or really good at something, you have to spend a lot of time at it. And in the book, they point to a lot of different things, from music to professions, accounting, law, to professional hockey players, where you have to practice at something for 10,000 hours in order to become a nationally recognized expert in something. So nationally recognized experts, they have to put in a lot of time and a lot of effort in order to receive something in return. This enrichment cycle works in a lot of other ways. The interviewing process. If you go into your first interview blind without looking at the thiswaytocpa.com, who here is going to go look at thiswaytocpa.com and really look at it and look at the podcasts of the interviews? How many people legitimately are going to go do that? I mean, almost all of you raising your hand. I hope you do, because those that didn't raise their hand, you're not getting a job. Those that did raise their hand are going to improve their chances on getting a job. We saw at the beginning of the presentation, half of the individuals that graduated got a job, half didn't. So the more you give, the more you put into anything in life, the more you're going to get back in return. And you got to remember that every day of your life, because there's other people that are showing up and putting forward a huge effort in whatever it is that they're doing. And those that put forward the effort generally receive something in return for that. And I will tell you that I learned this on accident. but I learned it, I figured it out, and it helps you grow as a person, helps you get back to the community, helps you get back to your university, it helps you get involved in whatever it is that you're doing, and allows for success in whatever it is that you want to be successful in. So that has nothing to do with the county, does it? But it has a lot to do with kickball, because those that get picked first work at it. There's some naturally that have natural ability, but at the end of the day, those that work at it, they have an advantage to those that don't. So what I really enjoy doing is answering questions about anything. And what I would really like to do, don't go all the way to the end, because there you go. Man, you're doing
I
something.
know, I was thinking.
So here's my email address. Here's my LinkedIn contact. If you, on the Twitter thing, if any of you follow, I do put out as cool of accounting stuff as you can. And if there's like a big snowstorm or I'm going to pull mountain bike ride, sometimes you'll hear about that too. But feel free. There's many students that have reached out to me where they're considering things, whether or not they should continue in school, and they're thinking about being a professor, or they're not sure which firm that they might want to work for, or they're thinking about leaving public accounting and going into industry. Use me as a resource. I will do what I can to help you. Don't waste my time. I mean, call me with well thought out plans, ideas, what you think you might want to accomplish, what you're struggling with. I will help you. I will do whatever I can to help you. You can also use my phone numbers. I was going to say my phone numbers. That phone number goes directly into my email, so I'll get it via email as well. I'll get it really timely. But you can feel free to reach out to me anytime if I can help you in any way. And there have been a lot of people that have done it, and I will. I mean, I went to UNC. I'm no different than you all, except I learned how to say you all when I came to Greeley. Because I didn't say that when I was in Boston. So with that, who wants to ask question number 2? Because nobody ever wants to ask question number 1. Question number 2.
Where do you buy most of your clothes?
I buy. Who wants to turn the video off? I'll tell you what I buy all of my dress clothes. All of my dress clothes, 100% of them, my tie, my suits, my shirts, all come from Nordstrom's. All of them. Every couple of years, I go into my closet and I virtually take everything out and I replace it all every 2 to 3 years at one of the twice annual men's sales. And I work with Bashi down in Park Meadows, Bashi at Park Meadows Mall. He calls me a week before the sales. Mr. Anton, come in, you can pick out whatever you want to pick out, and then he holds them, and then I just get it.
Do you get them tailored a little bit?
Yeah, they gotta hold them up because I'm a fat guy now. You should have seen me in college, man. I was one spelt dude. Yeah, they gotta tailor everything. I mean, yes, but I don't have custom-made clothing.
Okay.
There's people that do that. I mean, I did try that when I was thinking that it was kind of cool. It's kind of funny thing in life. So, as soon as you can finally afford virtually anything you want, you don't care about it anymore.
Right.
It's kind of an interesting phenomenon that happens. I used to care about cars, and now I could care less. I don't even, the car I'm driving now, it's the first American car I've had in 20 years. And I called my buddy that owns the car broker, and I said, I just want a sport utility vehicle. I want to pick it up on Wednesday. Get me what you think I'll want. And I lease them now, because there's nothing I really want. So I just rent cars for 3 years at a time and then turn them back in. It's kind of bizarre. All right, question number 3.
So I work at a restaurant, and I've seen different accountants that I've met through meet the firms, and I'm always like intimidated to like introduce myself. So I was just wondering if it's okay to introduce yourself if they're on like personal or business.
Absolutely. So the question was, works at a restaurant, sometimes sees accountants that you met at Meet the Firms and other places. What restaurant do you work at?
Bonefish Grill.
Bonefish Grill,
Yeah.
up here?
Mhm.
Okay. What I would recommend is that anytime that you see anybody that you have met or know, particularly if they're professionally connected, to go out of your way to say, I just wanted to say hello, I met you at Meet the Firms, I really appreciate it if you can remember what they talked about. All of those things make a huge difference, and that's what it takes. Putting yourself out there and in front of people allows you to be recognized, and you learn the skill of networking. It's an incredibly important skill that often doesn't exist when you get out of college, but you have to learn, because one of them, as soon as you start working in public accounting or in a company, they want to know how you're not just going to get the debits and credits right, but how you're going to benefit the company or the business. What else can you do for them? And there are going to be individuals that identify a sales lead or a contact or find another employee. And those that network, I'll have the opportunity to do other things for the organization that they're working with, and reaching out to people and communicating with them is completely appropriate. I would go out of my way to do it, unless I'm there. Leave me alone. There's one over here somewhere.
Yeah, I was wondering, when did you decide that you wanted to be an accountant?
I was in the business school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, other than I knew I wanted to be in the business school, and I knew that I wanted to own my own business. That's it. I said, I'm going to business school and I'm going to own my own business. And I think around my sophomore year, I took Principles 1, and I got 102%. It was a really easy teacher from Price Waterhouse, a younger lady that was here for about a year. She was too easy. I got over an A in the class. I mean, that's impossible. And she drew me in, because that never happened again. Not the A part, the 102 part. And my cousin was an accountant. My cousin was a CPA, and he worked for a large CPA firm. And I was talking to him about what he did, why he did what he did, and he said, just do one thing. Go to Career Services and look and see who's hiring on campus for jobs. So I went there, and we had First Bank, Kmart, and a bunch of accounting firms. And I said, well, I can go to work for First Bank or Kmart, or I can work for an accounting firm. And how do I work? How do you get a job working with an accounting firm? You have to sit through accounting classes, major in accounting, pass that CPA quiz, and the rest is history. So I really did it because it was where the best opportunity was for employment. I also enjoyed the accounting classes, but my ultimate goal was never to be a partner in a CPA firm. It had nothing to do with being in public accounting. My goal was always to own a business, and I stayed in public accounting long enough to start my own business. And I really looked at it as the opportunity to do whatever I wanted, when I wanted to do it, particularly as it related to business ownership. Owning a CPA firm is a really cool business. You work with great people, great clients, you're working with professionals all the time. And I didn't want a boss telling me what to do from New York or any place else that the large firms have bosses telling you what to do from. I mean, my boss has been with us for 9 months, man. Makes it easy. I can pull the wool over his eyes anytime I want. You got it? Hopefully answer
That's
that.
actually the same reason I became an accountant. My first accounting class, I got 104, and it was the highest in the class.
Dude, don't be trying to show me.
I'm not trying to show you up, but that's exactly why I decided to be an accountant.
What slacking faculty do we have up at?
It was at University of Mississippi.
Oh, that's why. I spoke at the University of Southern Mississippi a few months ago. What a cool campus that is.
Never been there.
It's cool. It's a cool campus. It's where Brett Favre went. There's Brett Favre statues every place. Other questions?
Okay.
go here and then there.
Sorry. You mentioned at the beginning that your firm also has $200 million in a financial advisory. Could you kind of talk about that a little bit more?
Sure.
In addition to the CPA stuff?
Yep, so we have a company called ACM, is it Wealth Management or Wealth Solutions?
Well solutions.
ACM Wealth Solutions. See, this is why you get the,
Okay.
it's right on the door, but I can't remember. I'm gonna come back to your question, but the other thing you need to know, I have severe dyslexia, like severe. I don't know how to read very well. I never learned how to write cursive. I can't sign my name. Like when I signed that check upstairs, when we gave this guy a $40 tip to bring $400 worth of Jimmy John's, I have trouble adding those numbers up, and I have to count on my fingers. And if you ever look at my signature, you'll be like, where did that come from? Because it's just squiggles, because I don't know how to do a G or an R or an E and a G. I don't know how to write those out. So I can write with block letters. I mean, I learned how to do that. And I got a lot of special help along the way. And finally, and I spell at about the second or third grade level. So you can ask me to spell any word, and I can't spell it. I can spell it, IT. But words beyond that. So it's taught me to rely on really good people that can do things a lot better than me. Like, I can't remember what the name of the business is that we own, because it just doesn't stick in my mind. So thank you. ACM Wealth Solutions is the name of the business, but now you know why I can't remember things. We started an investment company a few years ago, and then in September, just a year ago, September, we started an RIA, a Registered Investment Advisor. And an RIA is regulated by the SEC and by the state licensing, invest by the state. And we have two individuals that run that business that both worked for 10 to 12 years at a very large Wall Street investment house. And we wanted to get into that business. So we met with individuals that had a desire to get into that business. They're both really two young guys that couldn't start the company on their own. And we started it. And we had the ability to do it, so we did, and it's been really pretty successful. Those individuals are not CPAs, although there is a CPA designation for investment advisors. There's the Certified Financial Planner, which is a non-CPA designation, and there's the personal PFP, the Personal Financial Planning. So you can become a CPA, PFP, which is a designation for personal financial planning in the CPA world, as an aside. And that's what it is, that's what we do, and I probably didn't answer your question, but I answered a bunch of other stuff.
I was just curious. I'm a finance major, and I know that you guys are accountants, but so I was just curious.
So if you want to get a job, you got to beef it up a little and get some more accounting classes.
I know, that's right.
Although finance is a good major too, but go to the career services and go look and see how many people are interviewing for your degree.
I know. I found
There's
that out.
some.
That's why I'm here.
There's some. But we can convert you and you can leave just that much wiser. There's another one over here someplace.
What is one thing that you love to see in an interview? When you're interviewing someone, what's something that you love to see?
So when you go to that interview, you should know more about the firm than the person interviewing you. You should know more, because that person, for the most part, they've gone to some interviewing tutorial, they probably did a webinar on how to interview students. They didn't study the firm. The last time they studied the firm was the last time they went through the interviewing process. So to the extent that you can have the knowledge of everything that exists publicly about an organization or the different organizations, the different firms that are out there, and to the extent that you can gain an understanding of who the interviewer is going to be, if the first time you meet the interviewer, chances are, I mean, I don't do interview anymore, but I come up and I'm a greeter. They won't let me do the interview because I'm not competent for it. But I can be a greeter. I can welcome you and I can talk to you about our firm. So I will do greeting. And when I do that greeting, I'm not just greeting. I'm actually like, can this person talk to me? Are they pleasant? Are they dressed appropriately? It's all this stuff that you just kind of get a first read on. If the first time you've met me is during the interview process, you're like way down here. Because I'm up here. As busy as I am, I'm still up here. I'm going to be at Meet the Firms. I was at Meet the Firms last year. I'll be at Meet the Firms this year. Wednesday next week, is that what you said it was? So come by, go to all the tables and meet everybody. Meet the people that are doing the interview. Because if you can refer back to, you had this, or they'll remember, most of them will remember, had a conversation, and you gotta demonstrate that, going back to that enrichment cycle thing, show up, participate, ask questions in forums and groups like this, make yourself known. Anybody that asked a question here, I'm gonna remember that they asked a question. The individuals that didn't ask a question, I won't remember. So you have to do all those little things that make you more relevant. Know a lot about the group you're interviewing with, and if you can, meet the person in advance. And then prepare. Do it this way, the CPA thing. Look at those tutorials. Go to any of these presentations where they talk about what you should and shouldn't do when they're interviewing. That type of stuff helps a lot. Ask him, because he just got beaten up through the whole process. But have fun with it, enjoy it, because one other time, this will be the only time in your life where people actually want you. Seriously. You're gonna have people lined up for the top students, you're gonna have people lined up that wanna hire you. That will never happen again. The next time, don't think that when you get out of here and the career services and you're signing up and you get invited to do 7 or 10 or whatever the number is of interviews, that will never happen again in your professional career. You might get an interview or two, but after, the people just don't line up like they do when you're coming out of school for the good students. There was another, I think I had time for 1.5 questions.
I was just gonna ask, would you suggest printing off your resume on a nice document, say like in Office Max, instead of something out of just a regular printer, just a white piece of printer paper?
So for me, that doesn't matter, but ask somebody that really that cares. The ink on the paper is what's important. And having simply stated what you do well and the activities you've been involved in, all that stuff counts. And if it's on, the fanciest paper in the world, I mean, you can only put so much lipstick on a pig, you know what I mean? So you've got to have a good resume, and somebody that is more knowledgeable than me should tell you what, I'm sure they're gonna tell you it should be on nice bond paper and all that. But I'm too simple for that stuff. Show me the resume. I can look at a resume and also remember, you're gonna take hours to put that thing together and really fine tune it. Nobody's gonna look at your resume for more than 30 seconds. If anybody takes more than 30 seconds to look at your resume, they have no idea what they're doing. That's the reality. That's how much time it takes to look at them, to see and to evaluate. GPA, courses involved in, captain of the football team, whatever it is, it's the stuff that's there. Worked through school, didn't work through school, all that stuff can quickly be evaluated. So ask somebody who is more knowledgeable than me on that. What's there is important, not the gold colored ink and things like that, to me. Please.
I'm coming back to school, and this is going to be my second BA. And concentrating in accounting, I'm looking at doing auditing. I'm currently a night auditor at a hotel right now. I have 3 years of experience doing that. Do you think that'll help?
Oh, yeah. Any relevant experience you have that has any connection to accounting, internships, If you do an internship and you're successful in the internship and you enjoy it and you can talk about the experience, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal to have that experience to talk about. And, you know, if you've done it and you've been through it and you want to do it, that means a lot. All right, so we got to the 7 o'clock hour. I'm going to stick around. I'll be here. I'll answer some more questions if anybody has them that they'd like to ask individually. And please take sandwiches home or put them in the hallway for other people. And thanks for having me. And I'll be here whenever the Meet the Firms is. I'm planning on being there. So come by the table and say hello to people that know how to read, write, spell, and will accomplish tonight.
In the back row, the sign-up sheet is just coming down, so make sure you sign up before you do something over here.
Please take more sandwiches. And don't forget about the roadshow tomorrow night. If you have questions about dress, resumes, interview skills, anything that has to do with recruiting season, you need to be there tomorrow night. We have multiple recruiters coming. It'll be in your best interest to show up.
Yeah, do that. You got to go to those things. So where's the roadshow happening?
It's at Milne from 6 to 7 tomorrow night. Top floor.
What's Mill?
It's
It's
the
the
upstairs
big like
auditorium.
auditorium.
Oh, upstairs. So it's in this room. It's in this building.
Yes.
Not auditorium. Yeah, definitely participate.
Have you been?
Good.
Really busy with school. So are you gonna
And you appreciate it more after living here than you do. It's nice of you.
doing the job kind of thing. So auditing. One part,
Oh, yeah.
Wedding of Well, I'm gonna do the master plan, so I'm working on how to do it, how to do
You know, I think what's happening is I always just is hitting down here. I think